The gradual curve. My wife and I are in the process of moving and selling our home. So everything is kind of in a turmoil. And I've been thinking a lot about how people grow, first of all, toward Christ to become Christians. And second of all, as Christians, how we grow and change. We grow and change internally in places where it's not visible. And yet we hear people complain that they don't believe in God because they can't see Him. And every action that they have is based on an internal, invisible power inside them called the consciousness or the soul. They are motivated, they are controlled by an invisible force. And because of that, and because only God can change us, only Christ can change us, there are ways of changing that we don't like and we don't understand. We don't need to understand. And so I'm calling this the gradual curve. Uh, we've been taught to demand results, and we're still taught that the highest CEO is the person who can get the most results the fastest. And so they are taught to drive people, drive them hard, force them to work, get results out of them, measurable results in a constricted time frame. Several years ago, I watched a movie about an autistic savant called named Temple Grandin. It was a fascinating movie. And in fact, later on in 2025, she was named Woman of the Year. In her mind, she could see things that others couldn't see. And one of the things she saw was how cattle respond to the forces to drive them into pens. And her mind could visualize that they were in distress. And she could visualize why they were in distress. Now, I could relate to this because my father was started out as a cattleman, farmer, as a young boy, so he learned how to work with cattle. We can see this in cattle dogs that work with cattle. And one of the things that we notice is that the good ones are always gradual. They don't try to spook the cattle, they don't try to force them, they don't try to drive them. They give them time to find their head. And what Temple Grandin discovered and was able to convey to a lot of places, not all, but was that if you make soft turns, gradual turns for the cattle, rather than sharp right corners, they will be less distressed and it will be much easier to get them to go where you want them to go. The gradual curve or the abrupt right turn. I watched many times as my dad drove cattle, and sometimes other people would come help him, and they were yelling and screaming and waving their arms and spooking the cattle. And finally, my dad would say, "We've got them all stirred up. Let's just let them rest and come back tomorrow." And what he was saying was, you cannot move cattle that way. Now, people aren't cattle, I know that, but I am certain that there are many things that cross over. And we are in an age where church leaders and Christian leaders have been taught by the business methods to try to force people to be what they want them to be. And it doesn't work. what they end up doing is forcing their opinions, their choices on the people and taking away the people's choices. They have not done anything for the people. They have only done something for themselves. And they have made themselves indispensable to the growth of the people that they're trying to lead. Now, there, of course, are certain times when it's panic. Someone is on their deathbed and you want them to know Christ before they die. You try to be a little more forceful, but even then, force does not work. And I've learned that when the bridge is out, you yell to people to stop. That's the way it works. But God has created us as humans so that we respond to those who are trying to help us, not to those who are trying to force us. And when Jesus says, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light," he contradicts so many of the Christian leaders that are trying to force people to change instantly. I think that though it is slower and though it doesn't have the same visible results, the gradual curve in loving and caring and teaching and working with people is much more effective than trying to force them. Isn't that how you want to be treated? And that is all.